Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I'm helping you get out of your head so that you can truly have it all. Let's do it. What's up? Matthew Bivens here. Welcome to the podcast. I am super stoked to have you here today to join me as we're talking about creating and experiencing our version of an abundant, loving life. And you know, it's unique to all of us. And that's one of the things I find beautiful, that in these conversations that we're having, the things that I'm sharing, you know, there are aspects of what my abundant, loving life looks like that you can try on, that you can adopt, that you can incorporate into your own life, or you don't have to. And, you know, it's unique for all of us. However, what we are here aligning to is the belief that abundance and love is there for all of us. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about beliefs. And there's a couple of beliefs that I have adopted in the recent years that have absolutely transformed my life. And I want to share those with you today because I talk about beliefs on this show being like clothing, being like articles of clothing. You know, like imagine a belief as a shirt. And you can wear on the belief and see how it fits. And if you like it, you can keep it. Or if you don't like it, you just take it off, discard it, and grab a new one. So I want to dig into that a little bit. Before I do, I want to share some magic. Magic is my ability and your ability to influence yourself, others, and life in general to create amazing and empowering things. And so I just like to share magic so that we can always be reminded that we are magical people. And for me, some recent magic is that yesterday I had an opportunity to interview a really interesting guy. His name was Scott Kirschenbaum. And I was interviewing him for my other podcast, which is called Doing It at Home. That's the podcast I co-host with my wife, Sarah, where we talk about home birth. We talk about empowering women and empowering families to create the birth experience that they want. Because if this is news to any of you, my wife and I had a home birth with our daughter, Maya. And so we've been doing that show for about 2 years. And Scott is a director and a producer, and he created this really amazing documentary called These Are My Hours, which focuses for the whole film, just focuses on one woman and her experience of labor and birth. It's really phenomenal. It's really, really moving movie. And what I found magical about my conversation with Scott is that it was just the two of us, two dudes, and we were broing out over birth. And that's what we talk about on our conversation, how we are two guys talking about birth. And that, first of all, it's not something I really thought I would be doing in my life, being a man talking about birth. But that's the path that was laid out in front of me. But it's also something that you just don't hear a lot. You don't hear guys talking about birth. So for me, it was magical to have the conversation with Scott where we just went in. We talked about birth. We talked about how men can support their partners through pregnancy, labor, birth, all that beautiful stuff. And we talked a little bit about porn and how porn has really shaped our view, you know, a lot of men's views of women and the female body, and how when two things come together, like a naked woman who's making noises in these different positions, you know, a lot of us men traditionally, because of the impact porn has had on us, will associate that with something pornographic, and how that kind of messes with you a little bit when what you're actually experiencing is a woman in her power birthing life. So I had a really magical conversation with Scott, and just got to talk about some stuff that I don't always talk about with another guy. So that was really beautiful. And I invite you to think about and reflect on your magic. You know, pause right now if you want and just think about something that you've influenced in your life, something that has happened that you weren't expecting, or maybe a seed that you planted a long time ago that is now coming to fruition, now is bearing fruit. And just think about and reflect on how magical your life is and your co-creative abilities. And I guarantee you that it's going to grow, and your awareness around those things will grow. So let's move on to some listener love. I received some really cool Instagram messages from a bunch of you recently, and I wanted to give a shout out. I'm pulling on my Instagram right now. Let's see. I don't use Instagram a ton, so I'm trying to figure out how do I find my messages. I should bring Sarah in here because she's the Instagram queen. But here we go. Most recent message I got into a pretty cool conversation. Ivan S. And that's all I'll say for the handle. Ivan S. You know who you are. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. I appreciate you connecting with me on Instagram, reaching out, and just showing your love, sharing your love, and building that relationship. I really am about connecting with folks. I really just enjoy getting into these conversations with people. So, Ivan, appreciate you connecting on Instagram. And everybody else, I love to bring these conversations off of the podcast because on the podcast, I'm the only one who's doing the speaking. So when I get a chance to connect with you, whether it's live in person or via email or social media, it's always a beautiful thing. So if you want to reach out to me, you can connect with me on Instagram, Matthew_Bivens. And I don't post a lot, but I am on there talking with folks when they do connect with me. So that's Instagram, and then also on my website, I now have a form, a contact form where you can select, hey, I just wanted to give you some love, or hey, I just wanted to say what's up. So you can go to my website, MatthewBivens.com, click on contact, and you can get in touch with me through there as well. All right, let's talk about beliefs. Let's talk about beliefs because I believe that it is the things that go on in between our ears that impacts so much of our lives. And I know you believe that as well. And whether or not we experience life as abundant or scarce, whether or not we approach things from a place of love or we carry around our fears, that has to do with those beliefs that we wear on and really those beliefs that we run again and again and again until they become so automatic that we don't even think about it. It just pops up in different situations. So there are 3 beliefs that I want to talk about right now that have really impacted me. And if you decide to wear them on, you can look at your life through these perspectives and see what might change. The first of the beliefs, the first 2 actually are not going to be a surprise to you. The first one is that we are abundant. Abundance simply is. There isn't necessarily creating more abundance. There's aligning with abundance. And abundance is in all areas, which makes sense, right? So when we align to the truth that abundance simply is, when we align to that belief, since we're talking about beliefs, I'll call it beliefs. When we align to that, then guess what happens? We experience it. And when we don't want to align with abundance, well, we still experience it. It's just not in the ways that we probably intended. So I can walk through life choosing to see an abundance of problems, choosing to see that I have so many issues, that things don't go my way, that whenever I want to go left, something happens that kicks me right. So I can look at life through that lens. Or I can choose to see an abundance of growth areas. When things aren't going my way, guess what? You got to step up, right? You got to shift things. You got to show up. And so that's a way to look at what is simply presented in front of you because there is content and there is context. Content simply is what it is. It's just life. It's just the circumstances we go through. Context is what we make it mean. And if I'm looking through life through this lens of problems, issues, well then guess what? I'm constantly going to see problems or issues. If I'm looking at life through the lens of opportunity and growth, well, now I'm starting to look at things differently. And when I'm viewing things differently, I'm relating to them differently. I'm feeling differently about them. So with the abundance thing, right, I can choose to look at financial situation. Finances is something that touches all of us. I can choose to see if I'm in a tough spot. I can choose to see that I have an abundance of dead ends or an abundance of mounting expenses. I think we all have been there. Or I can choose to look at this as an abundance of opportunities to practice faith, to practice trust, to practice surrender, and to believe in my personal value. you can simply reflect on that and tell me which one of those two things is going to create a more pleasurable experience. For me, focusing on dead ends, focusing on this client fell through, this opportunity fell through, my money's going out, out, out faster than it's coming in. Focusing on that has never made me feel better. Focusing on my personal value, focusing on me as a co-creator, focusing on my ability to get out there and make and do what it is that I want to and need to, that empowers me. That makes me feel excited. So it's this belief that we are abundant, period. That as I've worn that on and adopted it and internalized it and imbued it, my life has changed because the lens through which I look at the world is very different. So that's the first belief. The second belief, again, you won't be surprised, is that choosing love always wins. You will always win when you choose love. And I believe that at our core as people, we want to experience love. We want to be love. We want to love on others. And the stuff that comes out in our interactions, in our conversation, the stuff that comes out that is coming from a place of fear or a place of scarcity or anger, all of that, that's just the piling on of life experiences and life circumstances that we haven't been able to shed, or we haven't been able to heal, or we haven't been able to accept and embrace. Because sometimes that's what it's about. It's about embracing these things. But at our core, we are love. And I've used that throughout my life, particularly when I'm dealing with challenging situations with loved ones. For me, it's been family. There are times when what I'm experiencing coming from a family member does not feel like love. It feels like judgment. It feels like resentment. It feels like somebody is intentionally trying to hurt, trying to bring me down. But I say to myself, no, I don't truly believe that person is the way they are behaving, right? Like, I don't believe that's them at their core. I think that they want to be loving and want to show me love and want to experience love coming from me. And due to how they are processing and due to the lens that they're viewing the situation, viewing their own lives, this is just what's coming out. This is what's being expressed, but it's not their true essence. That belief has helped me tremendously. It's helped me to stay in tough conversations with family. It's helped me to remain calm and to sit in that fire when darts are being flung at me from left and right. It's helped me to be in that space when it's happening acutely, when it's happening right now, and also when it's happening over the course of a long time, when there's chronic shit being tossed my way. My belief that we are loving beings and that choosing love always wins allows me to have that peace and to come from a place of love, because that's what I truly believe is wanting to come out of the other person that I'm sitting across from, despite how it looks right now. So that's belief number 2. Belief number 3, this is one that I don't know when this hit me, but when it did, it was very profound. And I remember sharing it with a friend, and when they disagreed, I was like, oh, that's going to create a very, very different experience. So this third belief, I guess, isn't as succinct as abundance and love, but it's this belief that there's no difference between me and any person out there that I see that has achieved something that I haven't, whether it's they've made $1 billion in their business, right? Or they seem to have all these loving, just amazing, deep, intimate relationships, right? Or whatever it is, they're an amazing artist, or they're just an extraordinary athlete. There's no difference between myself and that person who has accomplished something that's greater than me. Fundamentally, there's no difference. That's a belief that when you link up with it, when you sit on it, it's pretty powerful, because I spent a long time looking at somebody that, business is easy for me right now. Looking at somebody who was making $1 million in revenue and profit. Yeah, let's say profit. They're profiting $1 million annually in their business. And I would say, oh my gosh, there is something totally different between you and I. I would think that you got a leg up. I would think that you had some extra resources. I would think that you had something in your brain that made you more intelligent and more capable of doing what you did than I had. And as soon as I wore on that belief, as soon as I let that touch my spirit, I was already at a disadvantage. I was already handicapping myself because I could never have or be that thing that they were. And that created a very interesting experience for me in life, because it was just sort of like, okay, well, the cards have already been dealt. This person got an ace and I got like a 7 of clubs, and that's just how it is. It can't be changed. But somewhere along the line, I don't know if it was maybe in grad school, I was in business school focusing on entrepreneurship, and it might have been in that arena where, because, in entrepreneurship, especially when you're in school, like there's just possibility all over the place. When you're working in groups with people, any one of our ideas could be the next Uber, right? So it's not necessarily like you've got something that I don't and you, it's just, no, it's like, who's got that idea that lights them up, that builds the biggest flame within them? And so I think that was around the time when I just started to believe that, there's no difference between myself and Bill Gates. There's no difference between myself and Beyonce or J.K. Rowling, the author. Like, these people all went on to create extraordinary things in their lives and to do amazing things in their lives and to reach the top of whatever it was that they wanted to excel at. And there's nothing different between them and I. What they had or what they did, they simply got clear about what they wanted to experience. And then they developed the necessary skills to create what they wanted. That's it. It wasn't IQ. It wasn't genetics. It wasn't some special upbringing, some special school they went to when they were in 5th grade, and there's one teacher that they had and only they had that I didn't have, so therefore I couldn't create that thing. I couldn't go and perform in front of millions of people because I didn't have that same type of father in my life that pushed me in this way or that way. I just didn't have that. Therefore, I will never achieve the things that a Beyonce has achieved. You see how those beliefs impact us in such a big, big way. And so today, when it comes to my business or my family or my relationships or just the passions that I have, I think to myself, there's no difference between me and somebody who's gone on to create great things in these similar areas. And so I think, okay, well then let me get very clear about what I want to experience. And here are all the tools and skill sets that I have right now. What do I need to develop in order to get me there? Okay. Speaking. Maybe it's public speaking. Okay, let me go and join a group to hone that skill. Maybe there's people skills I want to develop. Let me go and figure out what I need to do, put myself in uncomfortable situations so that I can grow, so that now, I have acquired some skills that are going to help me get to where I want to be. I heard a stat recently that 70% of billionaires are self-made. 70% of the people out in the world who have created $1 billion in their lives and their businesses were self-made. They weren't people who inherited it. They weren't people who were given something special that only they could receive that I couldn't. They went out and did it themselves. So that belief has been big for me, obviously in business, but in other areas of my life as well. Particularly when things aren't flowing the way that I want to flow, and I want to blame some external circumstance or some external factor. I say, you know what? It's intention. It's being very clear on my bigger why, my big purpose. It's continuing to add fuel to my fire. Because when my fire is burning hot, nothing's going to stop me. And then it's recognizing what I'm great at and where some of my weaknesses are, and then covering that gap in whatever way I need to cover it. And so that has helped me tremendously. So that's all I wanted to share in this episode. I wanted to really just go back to this idea that beliefs can be picked up and worn on. You can experience a belief and see if it works for you. Do you like how it feels? Do you like what happens in your life as a result of holding on and wearing this belief? If you do, great. Maybe try to incorporate it in your life a little bit more. If you don't, let it go. There's plenty of other beliefs out there for you to grab onto. And so what I did today is I shared three that maybe you want to try on. Maybe you want to wear on that belief and say, it kind of works. And maybe you want to wear it on, and if it doesn't work, you say, cool, you know what, that didn't work. But guess what? I learned something about myself by stepping into another person's shoes and by wearing on another belief. And you've already won in either scenario. So I want to hear from you. What is a belief that you have chosen to wear on in the past 6 months? Something new that you're like, you know what? I like the way this belief feels. I like it. And I could see my life heading in a powerful direction the more that I wear on this belief. Share it with me. Share it with me because it might be something that I want to wear on as well. You can go to my website, MatthewBivens.com/contact, jump right in there and tell me what new belief has helped you level up your life. I love it. I love these conversations. I love anytime we get to put energy around creating our own abundant, loving lives. It's a beautiful thing. I could talk about this forever. I'm just so passionate about it. Yes. All right. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. My name is Matthew Bivens, and here is to you having it all. Quick note about the Having It All podcast. I am not a doctor nor a licensed therapist. I'm a guy with a story and a passion for conscious conversation. My thoughts, opinions, and beliefs are my own. So please consult with your doctor or healthcare provider regarding any questions or issues you have related to your personal, physical, or mental health.